Okay, there we go. Welcome, everybody. I'm Carol Van Sickle. I work primarily out of our Athens office, and today I'm going to go over mid-year contract change with everybody. So we have the document that I attached in the email that was sent to everybody yesterday. So this is the document we're going to be looking at today. So it goes through the steps that the SSDT provides on their mid-year contract change checklist. So I'm going to flip over to their website here, right here. Okay. So on the SSDT website, they do have a mid-contract change checklist. So I took the information from here, put it in the document that I sent out, and I have specific examples in the document we're going to go through. Unfortunately, I don't have a good demo account to use to actually show it live, but I am going to flip to a demo account to show you some things in there. But I have a bunch of screenshots in that document that shows you all of the information that you need. So hopefully it'll help you understand how mid-contract change works, so that when and if you use it for your district, it makes it a lot easier for you to understand, what's required to put in there, how to do the calculations, etc. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my document. There we go. Okay, so we have a table of contents here, and the document I send is a PDF version of this, but all of these table of content links are clickable. So you can just click it from the PDF if you have the PDF on your computer screen to get to those specific sections. But I'm just going to be scrolling through to cover everything. So when we get to this next page here, this first section is really, really important because you have to make sure that the existing current compensation record is correct for your employees. Otherwise, if you try to do a mid-year contract change on their record, you're not going to be able to get to the figures that you think it should be. Okay, that's a lot of the issues that we see. And the most common reasons that happen is contract days worked is not correct. And that happens a lot at some districts, especially at the beginning of the contract year, where maybe because of when the employee starts their first workday and the pay period range that's used on their first payroll, maybe it's not including all of their actual work days. So that throws it off a lot. This is the most common issue that we see. So before you use mid-year contract change, you want to make sure the days are correct for your employees. So what you want to do is you want to look at how many days from their compensation start date through the last payroll that was posted. And for that, you're using the payroll ending date. So compensation start date through payroll end date, how many days is that? Then go to their job calendar and check that same date range, and they should match. If they match, great, you should be good to go. If they don't, and it's off because a couple of days were missed at the beginning of the contract, then you can still use mid-year contract change, but you have to make sure you update the days worked on the compensation record. And to do that, you can do a compensation adjustment. I'll show you in the demo account how to do that. But here's a screenshot of that compensation adjustment screen. So you would just enter in the days worked that need to be added on. Okay, now if the days worked are not correct, then keep in mind the amount earned also is not correct because amount earned calculates off of the days worked. So if the days are not correct, you're also going to have to update earned. Okay, and then this shows you the calculations and of course whether they're daily or hourly rate. But again, you would calculate what the amount is for those days that were missed, and then you would do a compensation adjustment to update the amount earned. Okay. Let's see. Let me find my specific example here. Okay, so if you need to do this, what you'll want to do if you've never done a compensation adjustment before, I'm going to go to my demo account. Okay. So what you would do is you would go to the employee's compensation record, and I'm going to use the employee dashboard to look up an employee. So I'm going to go to Jim McGowan. Now, can everybody see that screen okay? I can make it a little bit bigger if needed. Okay. So I'm on Jim McGowan's record. I'm going to go to his compensations. Okay. And it's this first position that I'm going to edit. So you want to go into edit mode on their compensation record. Okay. And let's say I found out that he really should have 24 days worked. Okay, so from his compensation start date to the period end date of the last payroll he was paid, it's actually 24 days. So I need to add 2 days to the days worked field right here. Okay, so because it's off 2 days, I also have to calculate 2 days of earnings. So I'll take the unit amount, he's listed as hourly, so I have to take the 20.02 times hours in day of 8. That'll get me a daily rate, and then multiply that by 2. Okay, so I have that figure. So once you have that information, you edit the record, you scroll down to the compensation adjustment area down here, and you'll notice there's a create button. So just click create, enter in the amount earned, which I calculated is 320.32. And then days worked. Oops, sorry, I lost my cursor here. Days worked is the 2 days. Okay, so I'm going to click save. And as soon as I do that, it's going to update. Okay, so you'll see it added that record here. And if I scroll up, you can see now it has 24 days worked. And I forgot to show you amount earned. But before we updated amount earned, I guess I did not write it down, but you can see this updated. I do have on my document that that is the correct amount earned. So again, if we just calculate it out, it should come out to that. Okay, hang on a second. And I can bring up my calculator just as a double check. Let's make sure I got that right. Okay, and I got to figure out where my calculator went. Oops, don't want to hit that. Always something in my way. There we go. There's my calculator. Okay, so again, since their hourly rate, we need to take 20.02 times 8 hours per day. So that's their daily rate. So now I'm going to multiply it by the full 24. And there's my 3,843.84. So you can see that matches what's in here. Okay, so once that's correct, then you could process a mid-year contract change against the record. Okay, and just make sure you click save up here. Now, if you have a bunch of employees, so let's say it's a whole pay group, and maybe they're all getting an increase at the same time, and whoops, they all missed 2 days for days worked. Instead of doing these individually, especially if you have a lot of records, this can be done through a mass load. Okay, so if you have that situation and need assistance with that, just reach out to our team and we can assist you with that. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to flip back to the document. Because the last tip on that document is this is something you need to keep in mind as well. I haven't had anybody try this in a long time, but it has happened in the past where somebody thought, oh, I'll go ahead and get that mid-year contract record set up now, but it wasn't going to occur for 1 or 2 more pays from the payroll they're getting ready to do. You cannot do these ahead of time. So you can't go into new contract and add them before, way in advance. Okay. So let's say, for example, I have my first November pay coming up, but then the second pay of November, I'm going to have some increases for some employees. So they're going to have a mid-year contract change. I can't put those in new contract now. You have to wait until that first pay of November has been posted so that their compensation record is updated with that payroll information. Otherwise, your calculations are not going to be correct if you add it before that pay. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You can't do that ahead of time. You can't load it ahead of time, is what I should say. Okay, so let's go through specific examples. So there's three different mid-year contract change types. The first one I'm going to go through is no retro. Okay, so the employee is getting an increase, but that increase, they're not going back to previous days paid to give them that additional money. It's just from that point forward. So my specific example is I have an hourly employee on a stretch pay contract. They've been paid 4 pays, and they currently work 6.5 hours per day. They are going to be working an additional hour a day for the remainder of their contract beginning in the next pay period. So the only thing that's changing is they're going to be increased to 7.5 hours per day. Okay, I see something in chat. For our district, when the years have 261 days, we just leave off workday and job calendar. Okay, was this another conversation that I missed or? Oh, okay. Yes, I see that. Sorry. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so I have a screenshot of what the current compensation record looks like currently. So the employee had 38 days worked. You can see the hours in day is 6.5. Okay, but so that's the only thing that's going to be changing. We're going to change it to 7.5. Okay, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to do it in new contract through that specific type for no retro. Okay, so you can see they're actually listed as hourly at 19.01 for the unit amount. And then they have 181 work days. Here's their current pay per period, their current contract amount and obligation. And then you'll see that they've been paid 4 pays out of 24 pays. So right below this, I have the calculations on what I'm expecting everything to be for the contract change. So first thing I did was I calculated the new daily rate. So I'm taking the 7.5 hours, okay, so that's what they're increasing to, times the 19.01 hourly rate. So this is their new daily rate. Their new contract amount is that 142.575 times the full 181 days on the contract. Okay, so this is what's going to be called their full contract amount. And that is what you need to enter in the mid-year contract change record in order for it to calculate everything properly. Then I calculated work days remaining. So they had 181 days. They worked 38, so that leaves 143 days. Then I calculate the amount that they're going to earn from this point forward. So I take that 143 days remaining times the new daily rate. So they're going to earn 20,388.23. Then I calculate their obligation. So their obligation is what they're actually owed for the full contract year. So I took the amount they already earned, 4,695.47, which if I scroll up, it's well, I'm a penny off. Okay. 4,695.48 is what I would actually plug in. Not sure where I got the 47. And then the amount to earn that we just calculated above here for the remainder of the contract. Okay, then the pays remaining, they have 20, so 24 pays, 4 paid. So then we do a new pay per period calculation. And in this case, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but what I did was I took the accrued amount from their record, so right here, 967.92, plus what's owed at the new rate, the 20,388.23. Okay, and then this is the amount that they still need to be paid. Divide that by the 20 pays, and that's how I came up with the 106,781. Okay, so I'm going to grab a screenshot of those calculations so it's easier to compare them later as we go through this. maybe, if it'll cooperate with me. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside so we can look at it later. Okay. So now we go through the steps of adding them in new contract. And I'm just showing you right now how to manually add them into new contract. If you have a bunch of them, of course, there is a way to import them, which I'll go over that at the end of this document. But for now, I'm going to walk you through doing each one of these mid-year contract change options directly in new contract through the maintenance option. So to actually enter them in, you go to Processing and then select New Contracts, and you'll be on the New Contract Maintenance tab when you get there. And then you're going to click this Copy option. And the reason it says Copy is because you're actually copying the information from their current compensation record into the new contract program. So you click Copy, and then on the next step here, there's a screenshot right below step 2 here. So this is what you're going to see on your screen when you click that button. So what you're going to do is select your employee. So find the employee. You can just type the first few characters of their first or last name or their ID. And then it usually pulls in their first compensation record. So just make sure that is the correct one that you're updating. If not, select the correct one. And then in our example, we're doing mid-contract with no retro. So we selected that for the contract type. Okay, now the thing to always keep in mind when you're doing mid-year contract changes, when you put in the contract start date for the change, you always need to use the date after the last payroll end date that you used that this employee was paid on. Okay, so in our example, the last pay this employee was paid on had a start and end date that went from 9/20 to 10/3. So our compensation start date for this mid-year contract change is going to be 10/4/25. Okay, so that's what we plugged in here. So that's always the case for mid-year contract changes. The contract stop date, it should come in automatically, and it will be whatever the original compensation stop date is on the current compensation record. So once all that information is in the screen, you want to click Create Again. And then for our example, all we're doing is increasing the hours in day. And you want to update retirement hours as well if you plug in that value. So this is what you'll see on the screen. This is just the top part of the screen. And there's actually more to the right that I don't have a picture of here. But you'll see that where you selected mid-contract with no retro right here at the top. The raise date we'll talk about later. You only use these if you have a retro situation. So if you're using lump sum retro or retro spread, then we'll be filling this in. Since it's no retro, we can skip that. You can see here's that new compensation start date we put in. That's the original compensation stop. Unit amount is the same. We're not changing that. But what I did change is the hours in day. It was 6.5. So I changed it in this screen to 7.5. Retirement hours was filled in as 6.5, so I updated that to 7.5 as well. Okay, so so then after that, if you scroll down on the screen, there's a section called Contract. So you go down to that field, and then all you have to enter is the new contract amount. And keep in mind that that is the full new contract amount. So you can see I plugged in 25,806.08. If I bring the screenshot back over, you can see, yeah, sure you can. Didn't like that. Okay. You can see here's that amount right here. That's that full amount that we calculated. Okay. And really, that's all you have to enter in this screen to have it do the calculation for you. So then what you have to do after you put this in, and by the way, I left the contract obligation blank because the system will automatically calculate that for you. You can put something in if you want, but it'll just recalculate it anyway. So I just usually leave it blank and let the system do it. But then what you'll want to do is you have to scroll back up to the top of the screen, and then you'll see a calculate button. So you want to click that, and then you should see a message pop up, and hopefully it's green. And in my case, it's telling me the pay per period has been calculated, but there's no change in unit amount, which is correct because nothing changed on the unit amount. We didn't change the hourly rate. Okay, so that looks good. So then what you want to do is just verify the calculations that it did on the record. So if I go back to the contract section, that's where we plugged in this new contract amount. You can see it automatically calculated the obligation to be 25,08371, and then the pay per period as 1,06781. And again, if I bring this over, okay, you can see the obligation in bold in the middle of that screen there, 25,08370. Okay, it's a penny off, but that's fine. And then my new pay per period is 1,06781. Okay, so that matches my calculations. So if everything looks good, you scroll back up to the top of the screen. Make sure you click Save to save that record. This next step is advising you to go to the Reports option and select the new contract report. If you're only doing one or a few records, there's not really any reason to do that, but you can still run it anyway to just verify the information on that report. And then when you're ready to activate it, what you'll do is you'll be back on the new contract maintenance grid screen. You'll select the record or records that you want to update the compensation for, and then click that activate button. When you do that, you're going to see this box here. So it's an activate new contracts box, and then you'll just want to click activate again. Now, we do get a lot of questions about primary compensation. What is primary compensation? We recommend, marking that for your compensation records. It's really only used for certain, and I think it's usually some specific custom reports that are available. If you run them, and the employee has multiple compensation records, it tries pulling in information for all of those records, and sometimes it combines information into one cell. So like if there's different values in those records, it kind of puts them all together. So to prevent that, if you mark one primary compensation, it'll only look at that record. So that's all it's really for. That's all it does. But we just recommend go ahead and leaving that to set to primary compensation, and then just go ahead and activate it. And again, you should get a message. Hopefully it's green. It'll tell you how many contracts were activated. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, good. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet. Okay, so step 7 from the checklist is if you need to mass activate several contracts, you can filter that grid for only the ones you want to activate, and then click the box at the top, and then activate them all together. This note is important to remember. When the new contract is activated, the old compensation record will automatically update with the compensation stop date equaling 1 day less than the new compensation start date. So remember, that's going to be the ending date of the last pay they were paid on. And also that old compensation record will automatically be archived as well. So I have a screenshot here of that original compensation record after activating. So you can see here, it has the original compensation start date, but the stop date is now 10/3/25, and it is archived. Okay, and this will just retain the same information that was there when you activated. Okay, now the new record, so this one is active, it's not archived. So you can see that compensation start date of 10/4/25 that we assigned. The compensation stop date is the original stop date of 7/31. Okay, it's still 19.01 for the unit amount, but now you can see retire hours and day is 7.5. There's our new pay per period, the contract amount, and then that obligation. Okay, and then if we scroll down, there is a step 8 listed. This is just something for you to keep in mind if your district uses the position record to report EMIS-related information, what we call override fields. So that would be the contract amount, contract work days, hours and day, full-time equivalents. If those were filled in previously for the employee on their position record, and you're doing a mid-year contract change, you may need to update that information. So usually most districts only use those fields under certain circumstances. Most commonly, if you have an employee that works in multiple buildings and you need to split out their information for EMIS reporting. I'm going to flip over to the demo account though, just to show you in case you're not familiar with those fields. If I go to the position record for this employee and I look at his first position here. So what we're talking about on the position record is this EMIS related information area. And then these are what we call override fields. So contract amount. Normally for EMIS reporting, the contract amount will come from the compensation record. But if for some reason you need to report a different value, then you can use this field, and this is what will get reported instead of the amount on the compensation record. Okay, same thing for work days and hours and day. Okay, and then full-time equivalents, that's if you need to report a different value than what's up here on the position record. Okay, but again, when you're doing a mid-year contract change, if there's something already in those fields that you're reporting, keep in mind you might need to update those. So it's just a reminder to do that if you need to. Okay. So then the next thing that we recommend you do, and I always do this when I assist districts with doing contract changes, verify that the employee will be paid out correctly. So this is just a double check to make sure nothing went awry on the calculations. Okay, so again, you can do this a couple of different ways, but this is how one of the ways that I do it most often. So if you take their pay per period on their current or new compensation record times the remaining pays, I get this amount, and then you add in the amount already paid, and it comes to this amount, and you compare that then to the obligation amount. Okay, so here's the obligation minus what we just calculated. It's only 5 cents off. Okay, so either it'll be 0 for the difference or just, pennies off. Okay, and if that's the case, it's good. Okay, any questions about that? So that's our first example for no retro. Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, so the next example is mid-contract with retro spread over remaining pays. Okay, and the example I'm using is we have an employee that has been paid 4 pays already, but they're receiving an increase on their contract amount. That's currently $55,770. They're going to be bumped up to $58,560. However, it's only going to be retro back to the previous pay, and the district is not going to do a lump sum. Instead, they're going to spread that amount over the remaining pays. In this example, the last pay paid for the employee was on 10/20. The start and end date of that pay was 9/20 to 10/3. The increase is going to be effective 9/22, which is the actual first work day of that previous period. And in that time frame, the employee was paid 10 days. Okay, so they're only getting retro for that previous pay, so that's only 10 days retro. So again, we want to look at their current compensation record. Their days worked is 39 out of 183 work days. Here's their current contract amount, the 55,770. Remember, we're going to increase it to 58,560. They're paid a daily rate. There's their current unit amount. Okay, here's their current pay per period. And then down here, you can see they're paid 24 pays. They've been paid 4. Okay, so we know the new contract amount is going to be that 58,560. So we're going to take that, divide it by their 183 work days to get the new daily rate of 320. Their workdays remaining is 144. That's the 183 workdays minus 39 worked. The amount they're going to earn from this point forward is 320 for the new daily rate times the remaining 144 days. So this is how much they're going to earn. Pays remaining is 20. Their obligation we calculated to be this amount. Okay, and again, you can do this a couple of different ways. The way I did it was I took their current daily rate times 29 days because 10 of those days they worked are going to be at the new rate. So I just shifted it. So then I took the new daily rate times 154 days instead of 144. And then the new paper period, I took that new obligation amount minus what they've already been paid and divided that by the remaining pays. Okay, so these are the amounts I'm expecting to be calculated. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab a screenshot of that just so I can pull it over if we want to compare. So we go through those same steps. Go to new contract, click copy, find the employee, make sure you have the correct compensation record selected. For the contract type, we're going to use mid-contract with retro spread over remaining pays. The start date, remember that's the date after the ending date of the last pay they were paid on. So again, this was the pay period range used. So we're using 10/4 for the contract start date. Their contract stop date is 7/31/26. That just remains what it originally was. And then you click create down at the bottom here. And in this case, since we're doing a retro, we need to enter the raise date. So on the screen where it has the raise date, we're going to put in 9/22/25. Okay, we're not going to change anything else. We're going to scroll down to the contract section. And then that's where we're going to put in the new contract amount. Remember, that's the full amount that we calculated. So 58,560 right there at the top. That's what we wanted to increase them to for the year. And then that's all you have to put in. So then you scroll back up to the top, click calculate. Again, hopefully you get some green messages. In this case, both the paper period and the unit amount have been calculated. So then when we look at the record after doing calculate, this is what you'll see. So you can see here, this is where we entered our raise date right here, 9/22. But when we did calculate, it calculated the 10 days for us. So remember, we're only doing 10 days retro. It calculated the new unit amount to be 320 even. And then if we go down to the contract section, you can see that it calculated the new paper period and the new contract obligation. So again, if we compare that to the calculations we did earlier, so the new contract obligation, 5811787, you can see that down at the bottom of the screenshot on the right. And then at the very bottom, the new paper period matches. Okay. So everything looks good. You scroll back up, save the record. Okay. Again, on the checklist, there's just a reminder if you want to run the new contract report. And then when you're ready to activate from the new contract maintenance grid, select that record, click activate. You'll get this box, click activate again. It'll tell you how many were activated. Okay, and again, the same thing. If you have several, you can filter the grid and select them. The old compensation record, it'll update the compensation stop date and also archive it. So here's a screenshot of that. Okay, so this is the original one with the original start date, but now the compensation stop date is 10/3. It is archived. Okay, now if we scroll down, we see a screenshot of the new compensation record after activation. So you can see the compensation start date is 10/4. It has the original stop date. There's the new unit amount, the new paper period, contract amount, contract obligation. Okay. I see a question in chat. If an employee has dock days, do we adjust our calculations or does this matter? That's a great question. For docs, uh, as far as this goes, I recommend just ignoring it. So when you're looking at the current compensation record, do not look at that doc. It'll just mess you up every time. Okay, don't worry about that in your calculations. You just want to focus on what is their full contract amount if they were paid that increase during the full year. Okay, and then in new contract, you can make any other adjustments that might be needed. The only time you do anything with a doc is when you're verifying your calculation that they're going to be paid off correctly. Okay, so I'll show you that. I'll mention that when I get to these calculations here. Okay. Again, for EMIS reporting, remember if you use those override fields. And then when you verify that they're paid out correctly, again, take their pay per period times remaining pays, add amount paid. Now, if the employee did have a doc, this is where you will have to add the doc. Okay. So you add it in because remember when they're paid and a portion of it is docked, um, the you have to add that dock amount into the calculation. So you would have to actually add that on. And then you just compare that to the obligation. In this case, I'm only 7 cents difference, so that's pretty good. Okay. And keep in mind, let me go back up here to this screenshot here. So here in the compensation amount section, whenever you have a doc, keep in mind that the amount earned here is a total of whatever is in accrued wages, amount paid, and amount docked. All of those have to be added together to get to this value. Okay, that's why down here you need to add that amount in. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But that's the only time you do anything with the doc is when you're verifying your calculation for payout. Okay. Okay, everybody okay still? If so, I'm going to move on to lump sum retro. Okay, this is the most common one I see. So in our example, an employee has been paid 2 pays. Their current salary is $51,690. They're going to be increased to $55,964. It is being made retro to the beginning of the contract, and a lump sum payment is going to be made for those 2 pays that were already paid. So again, we're going to look at their current compensation record first. So we can see they have 24 days worked out of 183. Here's their original start and stop date. Here's their current contract amount. And you can see they're on 24 pays and they've been paid 2 pays. Okay. So we already know the new contract amount is going to be the $55,964. We calculate the new unit amount. Now they are hourly. I forgot to point that out. So they are on pay unit of hourly. So right now their unit amount is 39.783. So we're going to recalculate that. We're going to take the new contract amount divided by the 183 work days and then divide that by their hours in day, which is 7.1. So if you look up here, it's 7.1. Okay, so that should be the new hourly rate. The new pay per period, you take that new contract amount divided by the full 24 pays. They have 22 pays remaining. And to calculate the lump sum retro, what you do is take the new pay per period, so that 2,331.83, subtract the current pay per period to get the difference, and multiply it by the 2 pays paid. Uh-oh. Okay, let me get rid of that. We do not want to restart now. That would not be good. Okay, hopefully it doesn't force me to do anything. I don't think it will. Okay. All right, so let me grab a screenshot of that, just so I can bring it over to look at. All right, there we go. Okay, so we'll go through the whole thing again. So you go to new contract, click copy, find the employee, but now we're make sure the compensation record is correct. Mid-contract with lump sum retro is what we're going to select. Now, in this example, the last pay this employee was paid, their begin and end date was 9/1 to 9/15. So we're going to use a compensation start of 9/16. So we plug that in here. The compensation stop date will remain as is. And then you click create. And again, we have to use the raise date field because they do have a retro. So we put the compensation start date of 8/12/25 in here since it's retro to the beginning of the contract. Then we scroll down to the contract section. We put in the full contract amount, so that's their new full amount, 55,964. 964, excuse me. Leave the obligation blank because it'll calculate that for you. Scroll back up to the top, click calculate. Again, we got in green, pay per period and unit amount were calculated. And then as we review the screen, here's where we put in our raise date. It calculated 24 days since raise, and that does match the days worked. You can see that actually right down here. Okay, so that, confirms it's a full retro. The new unit amount was calculated at 43.072. And then when we go down to the contract section here, here's that unit amount. Here's the obligation, which that is the same as the contract amount in this case. The new pay per period is calculated here. Let me make that just a little bit bigger. That looks small even for me. Okay. So there's the pay per period. Here's that retro. And then, like I said, the obligation and contract amount match. Okay. But again, if I bring this over, okay, you can see the unit amount matches 43.072. Pay per period is 233,183, and that retro of 356. I calculated 16 cents. The system calculated 17 cents, so it's just a penny off. Okay, so that's all good. So you would go back up and save the record. Again, if you want to run that new contract report, that's on the checklist. And then when you're ready to activate them, select them on the grid, click activate. You have to click activate again in that box. The message will tell you how many were activated. Step 8 of the checklist is if you're going to mass activate several contracts at the same time. Excuse me. And then a reminder about the old compensation record. Okay, so I have the old compensation record screenshot here. So again, the compensation stop date on that record updated to be 9/15. It is archived. And then the new compensation record here has the compensation start date of 9/16, the original stop. There's the new unit amount, 43.072. And then you will see on this screen the retro next pay. So when you initialize the next payroll and this employee gets pulled in, this retro next pay field will automatically be included in the payroll payments current record for that employee. So it'll just automatically pull in. So here's the new pay per period contract amount obligation. Okay, again, reminder for EMIS reporting, and then our calculation to verify that they're going to be paid out correctly. So in this case, it was only 7 cents difference. Okay, any question on that or anything we've covered? Okay. Okay, so what if you have a bunch of people? Okay, doing it manually in new contract isn't bad if you only have a handful of people to do. But if you have large groups of people, so, a lot of times there are certain pay groups that will get an increase at the same time. So for that, we recommend you use the import new contract option. So some of you may have used that option for your new contracts for each year, but you can use it for mid-year contract changes as well. Okay, so you can use a spreadsheet file. Before you load it into new contract, that file has to be in comma delimited format. For districts that have a really large number of records, it is recommended to load 450 records or less at one time. And then make sure you verify your column headings on your spreadsheet. They have to match the column heading outlined in the documentation. And I do have a link to it on this document. So import new contracts. If you click that, it should take you right to that section of the new contract documentation. So I'm waiting for it to load here. Okay, it should take me to that section. It's a little slow loading for some reason. Okay, so I think I'm in that section. Yep, if I scroll up just a tad, I can see I'm in the import new contract section. Okay, so if I scroll down a little bit, okay, you're going to see the table that has all of the column headings. Now, if it's in bold, it's required. So employee ID, job number, which is the position number, contract type, and this tells you right here what values to enter. So if you're going to do mid-year changes, you're either going to do 1 for no retro, 2 for retro spread over pays, or 3 for lump sum retro. New compensation label, that's in bold, but it's only required if the employee has more than one compensation for that position. Otherwise, you won't need to put that in. And then here are some other fields that you can enter in. And of course, there's a few that you'll want to include. So going back to the document, I actually have in there, and this is also on the checklist as well. Let me see here. Here we go. All right, so right here, you'll want to make sure it has contract type, that is required, employee ID, job number field. So these are the headings that have to be on it. This one, you only need it if they have more than one compensation for that same position. You do want to put in the contract amount because that's where you're going to enter that full amount we were talking about as we went through manually entering them. You want to enter in contract start date, and that again is the date that is after the last pay period ending date that was used for that employee. Last name and first name you'll probably want in there just for informational purposes so you know who they are. Raise date you'll need in there if you're doing a retro spread or lump retro. Okay, so really these are the only fields you really have to have in. And then anything that you don't put in here, it will automatically pull from the existing compensation record. Okay, so here's an example of what a spreadsheet would look like with some of that information. So this is all I would need to do the import. Okay. And I do have an example I'll actually show you in the demo account, but I'll go through the steps here first. So again, you're going to go to new contracts, but now you're going to select the import new contracts tab. And then this is what it'll look like. So you'll select your file and then the contract start date, actually it lists it down here. For the contract start date, if you have that in your file, you can just leave that blank. If you don't have the contract start date in your file, then you have to enter something in here because it needs to know what to put in for that date. Okay, then you just click import. So there's an import button right there, and you can see it'll tell you how many records loaded or if you have any errors. Okay. All right, so let me show you that. I have a spreadsheet file right here that should load into my demo account. Let's see if it cooperates with me. Okay, so I have all of these loaded in my file, and this is a comma delimited file already. So it is the correct format. So, and I made sure my header names do match what is in the documentation. And you can see I do have raise date here. My contract type is the 3, which is lump retro. And I have quite a few records here. So I have 59 records because the first row is my header. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close that. I'm not going to save it. Okay, I'm going to go over to my demo. Okay, so we're going to go to processing, new contracts. click on Import New Contracts. I'm going to select my comma delimited file. Okay, which is this one here. Open. Okay, it put it in there. I have the contract start date in the file, so I can leave this field blank. Go ahead and click Import. Wait for it, and it'll tell me right on the screen. You can see it loaded my 59 records. Okay, so as soon as that's done, then they're right here in New Contract Maintenance. So now it decides to load. There we go. There's all my records that I just loaded. Okay. So it's that easy. And then if we wanted to look at one of them, well, I'm not actually going to look at one because these are not good records because these demo accounts are extremely old. Things are not updated. But you could go into some of the records and verify the information if you want. Or, since there's 59 of them, this is when I definitely recommend going to reports, run the new contract report, and then you can review all of the information on that report for all of these employees. The other thing you can do if you want, if you're comfortable working with the grids, you could use more and put the specific fields you want to check for these employees right on the grid. And then you can either just kind of review them on the grid, or you can actually run a report from the grid. And then it'll show you everything that's in the grid on that report. And you can put it in an Excel file if you want to more easily review everything. Or you can put it in PDF if you want. So that's another option. Okay. So then when you're ready to activate all of these, if you're activating them all at the same time, you can just click this box in the upper left. It'll highlight all of them that are in the grid. And then you can just click activate and it'll do all of them at the same time. Okay, let me go back to the document. Okay, so that's where we're here. We went ahead and did the import. Here's the step, a reminder of the new contract report to verify the information. To activate, okay, you have steps 7 and 8, whether you're doing individual or mass. Reminder about what it does with the old compensation record, and a reminder about the EMIS reporting fields. And that's it. That's everything I was going to cover. I do see something in chat. Let me see what that is. Oh, okay. I apologize if I missed this, but is there a template for the import option? If not, where would be the best place to pull the data? We have to do lump sum retro mid-year contract change for all of our non-certified staff. Okay. I can't remember if we had a template team. Do you remember if we had a template out there? I don't. Seems like I had a template from somewhere before. Um, we could, I don't know if the SSDT has one. Let me look real quick. Like I said, at a minimum, the ones I showed you are all you really need that are in that one section. But sometimes they have templates in here, but I don't know if they have anymore. Oh, well, you know what? Let me give you this instead, actually. This might be better. I almost forgot about this, so I'm glad you asked that question. Um, so something you can do to get that information into a spreadsheet more easily, and then just work from that and just make sure the headings are correct. Let me go into my demo account. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the public shared library. Okay, if you've never been there before, the easiest way to get to it is in your USPS account. If you click on Help and go to Public Shared Reports Library, it'll give you this link, which will open up in a new tab. And you can either start scrolling through it to look at what reports are available, or what I like to do is Control F to do a find and just start typing new contract. Okay, and then right here, there's a new contract compensation worksheet. So what you can do is click this if you don't think you have this already. You can just click on the title, and then it's going to give you this screen, which is going to look kind of weird, but it's just showing you the raw data from that file. All you have to do is click the download button, and, save it wherever, or, wherever your downloads normally go. That's where it'll be. And then all you have to do is in your USPS application, go to Reports, Report Manager, click this Import Report option. And then all you have to do is locate that file, which mine usually goes to temp. I don't know if it's still there. It might not be. Yeah. So it's right here. So you just click it, open it, and then you'll get this box. And you can change the name of it if you want. You can add tags if you want, but just save it, which I've already done. Actually, we have 2 of them out here. This is the one that I downloaded here. And all you have to do is click the button over here to generate the report. It's already set to go in Excel data format, and you can change the name to whatever you want if you want to change that. And then in the query options, you can either put start date and or stop date or pay group. Okay, now pay group, I think it's set to do like a like qualifier. That can be changed if you have trouble using that. We can help you with that if you don't know how to do that. But I did run this for this training, which I think is this one. I ran it for pay group 1. So this is how you might want to start and use this. I believe I did have to update some of the labels, maybe a lot of them, I can't remember. But this gives you a good starting point anyway. So all you have to do is make your updates in here, make sure you have the correct headers you need. And then again, just verify with the documentation you have the correct header. Okay. I will look for a template. I don't remember seeing one. I would have to look to see if I can find one or not. But again, through the mid-year contract change checklist and as well as this document that we gave you, it's really just these headers here. These are the main ones you need here. Okay. So you really don't need a lot. So it's pretty easy to create that yourself. Okay, let me see what else was in chat. Getting ready for salary degree changes that are dated back to first day of contract with Plum Retro. Refresher was perfect. Awesome. Thank you for that, Sarah. Okay, any other questions anybody has?
Carol, can I ask one?
Absolutely.
As you know, we're headed headlong into this sometime this year.
Yeah. Oh, yay.
We don't know when that hammer's going to drop, and I guess not for sure, but it's probably going to. And we're going to do the lumps. We're going to do the lump sum retro, I'm sure, just like we did in the past. But my question is this: last time when we did this, I mean, we were like weeks into redesign, so we were just fortunate that it went as well as it did. But now we half know what we're doing 3 years in at this point. I think the way we did it before, as I was kind of looking through my notes, was we did this with that like retro next pay for their field for basically that was for their regular pay, right? But as you know, there's usually lots of overtime, there's lots of double time, there's additional straight time, there's dock time. We talked about all that, right? And that is fun to go through and figure that out, which was fine. We were able to pull reports and we were able to do that last time. But those were done, we did those as a separate load, like into a payload. My question is, for proper pay and reporting and tax purposes and all that, is that still the way we're going to have to do all those, where we say like, here's a retro for your OT, here's a retro for your double time, here's the retro for your additional straight time? Or if we want to, can we figure all that out and put it into a single next pay retro field? Or would that then kind of screw things up because it's not labeled as like an OT? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I think you have to keep all that separate because remember, retro next pay affects that specific compensation record. So you don't want to be including retro in that file.
You don't want to get your OT retro or your double time retro in there.
Correct.
So that's still, I just wanted to make sure, because like I said, we barely knew what we were doing 3 years ago. And you guys were kind enough to guide us through it. But that'll still be the same.
Yes.
Nothing's really changed on that. Okay.
Yes.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't an easier way to do that. And
yeah, sorry, no, not for that. Not for that.
It's just going to be, it is what it is. It's going to be painful. So.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Got
don't
it.
have better
Thank you.
news for you.
No, no, that's fine. We'll figure it out. We do. I mean, you guys will, I'm sure, help us as we have questions along the way.
Absolutely.
Has it changed that much in the past 3 years, or is it pretty much kind of the same? Or is there any big changes on that, or is it pretty much the same process?
For new contract, actually, it's improved a lot over when it first came out because it was pretty confusing and difficult when new contract first was available in redesign. As I recall, it was doing some really weird things with the compensation records. Um,
There was a few things with that did go wrong. I remember we were even talking with the
yeah,
SSDT at one point. I think they even used the term a bit dicey to describe the retro pay in the beginning there. But but
that
I mean,
sounds
they
right.
helped us. They helped us out,
Right,
but
right. Yeah, it works a lot better than it did, that's for sure. But
okay, that's great news.
unfortunately, your situation at your district is pretty complicated, and the software
800,
does
800
not.
classified employees is not easy. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah. We'll be fine. It's just more love. We do the import like you said for sure for everything.
Oh yeah.
We don't hand we don't hand do anything like that. So we'll we'll get it in there and ask you questions. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Sounds good. Okay. Questions from anybody else? Okay. I think that does cover everything. I almost missed a couple things, so I'm glad there were some questions that did come in. But I think that's about it. So if you're going to be doing a mid-year contract change, you need any assistance, have any questions, let us know. Just reach out to our team. We'll be glad to help you. And thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.